Okay, so moving on to part two of the 30 to 1 for comedy movies that are just going for the funny stuff. 30 Chips. Boy, this got negative reviews when it came out, and I didn't even see it in theaters because I was like, ooh, it was getting panned so terribly hard. But I decided to watch it afterwards, and I think it's hilarious. There's a pretty good little story going on with it. Vincent D'Onofrio being the bad guy and everything, but there's a lot of really funny parts. So yeah, I really like it. Porky's. Not many people remember this. Seemingly, the sequels are pretty good, but the first one is really very good. So some classic scenes. Full of comedy, really good stuff there. Both Hot Tub Time Machines. The first one is better than the second one. The second one I liked better the second time I saw it. So it's not quite as good as the first one, but still a lot of great stuff in those movies. 27 and Night the Roxbury. I mean, this is just a classic. Yeah, it's light on story. I mean, it's basically a hangout movie. You're just with these two bozos going around town dancing, trying to hook up. 26, 21, and 22 Jump Street. Movies that I think are almost way better than anyone expected. Just because they were different enough with them going with so much full on comedy. But there's also a lot of good action in the movies. Some really some really funny parts and interesting dialogue and situations and how things are told. Especially seeing it really doing a good job of showing college and then high school and then college life. Having characters older, looking back on it, going back to school. So yeah, it's a lot of really good stuff. Me, Myself, and Irene. Super funny. There's something that makes it not as good as lots of the other Farrelly Brothers movies, but still really, really good. Oscar. Here's another one that I don't know how many people know of, but Sylvester Stallone, very, very hilarious situational comedy. Takes place in 1931, where they're all gangsters and everything, but super funny. Borat, just so great, especially when you know that very few people are actually actors. Pamela Anderson, and then his travel partner. How everything is so real makes it even that just really hilarious. Anything to do with Jackass, you have all the movies, then you have the Jackass 2.5 and 3.5 and whatnot. How those side movies, they're different. They're not just extended cuts. They're full on different. So there's a whole bunch of material, and you can even include the TV show and all the other spinoffs, really. But just super funny stuff. My favorite thing about the Jackass show and movies is you can really get a good feeling of how they're all one little family. How nothing that they do is ever that harsh. Usually, even the rough stuff that happens, all the guys, they always have a laugh at it. So yeah, I always like the familial connection that they really do seem to have. Airplane. Super funny. It's not one I revisit as often as others, but there is just a ton of jokes and just some really smart situations and clever moments that it's taking from other movies that you may not even know the movies that it's ripping off of, but it's still funny and goofy and just wild. Here's one that seemingly is always like on a list of like worst movies of all time. It was filmed and then released years later, but you got Clifford. And I mean, to me, it's not a gimmick that Martin Short is playing like a 10-year-old or whatever it is, because it doesn't treat it as a gimmick. It treats it as, here you have at the beginning of the movie a 90-year-old guy talking about something he did as a child and having the same actor do it, going from old age makeup to himself, but playing himself as a 10-year-old. It seems like it's something that could be a gimmick, but they play that straight. There's only a couple of references in the movie about how he looks much older than 10, but it is downright hilarious. I do not have a problem with. I watch this movie all the time, not all the time, but yeah, it's great. The Naked Gun series, I'm not as familiar with the sequels as I am the first one, but just really smart comedy, a fun story, just great to laugh nonstop with. There's another movie that was panned by critics that I seem to really enjoy. Baby's Day Out. I don't care what people think about it, because usually their negatives are just positives to me. I don't think it's issues with the movie whatsoever. I tend to just, I really hate when people compare this to Home Alone, because there's lots of movies that came out, in the years following Home Alone, but where there's like pratfalls and lots of physical comedy. But I think Baby's Day Out is just downright hilarious, has some standout scenes, and the trio of actors, they're just perfect. It's really great. And I mean, obviously from this point on, you're getting into the top 17, you're getting into some classics, although I don't think most people would consider Baby's Day Out more of a classic than probably a lot of everything that came before it. But it's hard to rank these when you have such great stuff as The Jerk. Just so many great lines and scenes, and just superbly funny. Caddyshack. Hangout movies are some of my favorite, because like I said in a prior video, I don't always need story or even a deep story. Caddyshack has some story elements there, but mostly it's just the lines and the situations and the characters and the way they interact with one another. I think my favorite scene is when Rodney Dangerfield pulls up in his car and just owns the entire place. Well, he owns every single scene that he's in as far as the way he talks to everyone, but a really great movie. Here's another kind of underrated movie, Detroit Rock City. This movie it doesn't deserve to be as good as it is, because it's a simple story. It has a fairly small budget, but it is just great. Like the filmmaking, the acting, the way, I mean, it totally looks like it's in the 70s. It perfectly captures that era. At least, I mean, I've never even lived in the 70s, but it sure makes it feel great as far as placing itself in that era and just really just doing everything it can and having everything just work out so amazingly well. like I don't know, it deserves like a full on commentary or review, like so many of these movies do. But because I can go on and on and on about it, but it's a really rather good movie. The For American Pie, I would definitely say the first four. Well, not the first four, but the main four movies: 1, 2, Wedding, and Reunion. I've not seen any of the other spin-offs. I I kind of want to because maybe they're actually kind of funny, but I don't know. I'm almost afraid to. I'm afraid that they just won't be that good. But yeah, this was a yeah. All movies for the most part always had all the same characters. I know a couple of them kind of came and went, but the ability to have such a large group of actors play in four movies throughout a span of what 15 years or whatever it was, and have all four movies be just really good. Yeah. I mean, they're just really good for what they are. I think a lot of people will watch it and be like, oh, it's this teen sex comedy and there's lots of gross scenes and stuff. But then in the end, it's like, oh, it's actually a rather really good movie. Vacation. I will say very similar to kind of like American Pie. European vacation. Well, the first one, European Christmas, and I even like Las Vegas, Vegas Vacation, and then I really like the remake. So those five movies I would put at 13. They're all really good. If I had to rank those five movies, it would be I gotta go 1, 3, remake 2, and Vegas. Kingpin. We're starting to see more of the Farrelly Brothers movies as we go higher on on this list here, because the Farrelly Brothers made some of the best comedies of all time. Kingpin is no exception. There's, I mean, like I said, really any of these movies, I could do like commentaries on or something like that, and just talk about multiple aspects of these movies and why they're good. Not just that they're funny, but there's a lot of things going on and things I think about whenever I watch them that make these stand out as being great. Scary Movie 1 and 2. I get through the first half of 3, and yeah, it's funny, but it just doesn't. It's just missing out on what the first two had. And I just kind of get bored with 3 after a while, and I don't know if I even gave any of the other ones a chance just because they didn't look that great. But Scary Movie 1 and 2, top notch, super smart movies, and just very, 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 very funny. Ruthless People. Here's one that I think is highly underrated. Obviously, it made my top 10 in this list, and I don't know if I've ever encountered anyone who has seen it, really. I mean, it is very, very smart. The amount of miscommunication and misunderstanding between all the characters, and just each scene has layers upon layers of comedy. It's super good. And I'll say that about all these movies because they're so high on the ranking. So I'll just kind of give all the next ones just, super good status. Slime and Salmon. Yet again, we have Broken Lizard coming back. This movie, luckily, I think I saw the movie before I saw the poster, but a lot like Quasi, I think the poster is just a blue background and you get some stuff. So I wish their posters for this was better. But yeah, this is like the main one, and it just kind of looks generic, but flat out hilarious movie. And they do a great job of which they've done in a couple of their movies, where they've written and they've given the best role to someone else. that's not one of them. And so you have Michael Clark Duncan here, who plays the Slammin' Salmon, and it's one of the funniest roles of all time. Both Ace Ventura movies. I would say one is better than two for the story and how it goes about telling the story. But two is funnier as far as the amount of laughs that it gets. I mean, some of my all-time favorite funny scenes are in part two, especially. Great duology of movies there. Grandma's Boy. This is, to me, it's like you have all these like Adam Sandler production movies, like the Happy Madison movies. And this one stood out to me because, well, one, it's like, well, Adam Sandler doesn't even have to be in it. You can have all these other actors that you've known from lots of his other movies, but you throw in just one crazy, interesting, never before seen character after another. You have the trio of the grandma and her two roommates, which just adds so many hilarious situations. That they all do a great job in their roles. It's absolutely one of my favorites. I can never get enough of Grandma's Boy. Broken Lizard again, both Super Trooper movies. I mean, when Super Troopers came out, it was huge, and I think it has the strength to get renewed interest and become more well known as the years go on. And then you got the sequel, which came out not too long ago, which to me is just as good. They know how to take their characters in a direction that they would never have made a Super Troopers 2 unless they knew that it was going to be worth it to understand that their characters could be in this situation that requires a sequel. So they don't do the old, they're getting their old jobs back, in their old town or whatever, whatever. It smartly introduces their characters into a sequel in a very, very believable way. And both movies are just top notch as far as memorable lines, just quotable nonstop, but also really interesting stories. Like I said, this is not a list of movies with stories being at the forefront, but I really like the way the stories in these movies develop over the period. Another Broken Lizard movie, Club Dread. Here we got a poster that is finally a really good poster. At least that has a good design about it. But the movie's great. It's a comedy horror movie, so there are some horror aspects to it, but it's basically a horror movie with just goofy characters doing things that you feel like they would do in these situations. And the more you watch it, the more in tune to the characters and the environment and the setting that you can feel a part of, and you find the hilariousness about the situations and just the way the characters move about and talk to one another. I think it's very smart too. There's so many things that you can. It's like it's not a spoof of horror movies, but it does a very smart. It never outright points to things that it's kind of pointing the finger at and satirizing or whatever. It very smartly goes throughout and it rewards the smart viewers, the horror fans, quite well. Liar Liar. There's a story there. He wants to, win back the trust of his ex-wife and his son, and they could be moving out of town, and he's got this trial going on, but it's just a situation to set up. It's it's setting up funny situations. It does have some heart to it, but I mean, it downright has some unbelievably hilarious scenes to it, and that's the biggest reason to watch this. Just the insanity of some of the funny scenes. All three Austin Powers movies. I think they got funnier and better as they went, which is kind of a rarity. And that's probably why you have not seen a fourth one. Although I would like to see a fourth one. It's like they would have to do extremely good in the fourth one to continue that rise of great stuff. Ripping off of not ripping off, but paying the James Bond homage series. It does so many things very, very well, and most of that being comedy, of course. Another Broken Lizard movie, Bear Fest. I think out of all their movies, this was the one that seemed to have just like almost the perfect amount of everything. They this time they were the stars, but they surrounded themselves with of course with a lot of great characters. Their German counterparts are all amazing. Just everything about this is great. There's no reason for me just to go on and on because I'll just use every single adjective I can think of to talk about how great this is. But just super funny, incredible scene after scene after scene. Every single scene, every single line of dialogue is somehow memorable. And that goes true with the next selection, which is Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber 2. The second movie that came out, I didn't care for it too much, and I've never really wanted to give another shot, which was the prequel to the first movie. Then you have Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey coming back for Dumb and Dumber 2, and even though I think a lot of people take a look at that very negatively, I think Dumb and Dumber Part 2 is a great sequel. It's not quite as good as the first one. I think it has almost a negative aspect about it because it came out so many years after the first one. I think a lot of people might go into it thinking, why didn't they make this sooner? Or why are the actors coming back now? Are they just trying to do a cash grab? Or I don't know what made people dislike this as much as they did, but just even if you think about it as not a sequel to Dumb and Dumber, if that was just a movie that came out, it would be very, very, very hilarious and compete against all the other comedies that are coming out that came out around it. So I really like Dumb and Dumber 2. Yeah, not quite as good as the original, the first one. But I mean, it comes down to Dumb and Dumber, though. That and its sequel, but that mostly is such a classic movie. Just one of the all-time greats. So, so that's the list of my top 65 comedies that focus more on setting up comedic situations, doing funny lines, trying to be leaning heavily on a comedy, and then maybe having some good story thrown in there to boot. I will definitely do more lists like this in the future. There's random weird lists I can come up with. Like I've always wanted to talk about all the sports movies, the kids' sports movies of the 90s. I think that'd be a fun list to look at. And I don't know if there's a better format than this one on this Cheermaker website. But let me know in the comments below what you think of my ranking, if I'm way off on some of these. Like, I am certain that some of these, I don't know how many people will think that the Slammin' Salmon is better than Airplane, or if, you know, Chips is better than, 35 movies or whatever that came before it on this list. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Put your top 5, top 10 list down there. What do you think of my list? Did I get any correct? Obviously this is personal opinion, but yeah, how many of you agree with my number 1 or 2? Just let me know, and I'll catch you on the next one.